Okay, for all you Ghostbusters out there. Now, I do believe in ghosts. Okay, so I'm not saying that everything you guys put out is made up. But can a watcher of your material give you some critique and maybe a little bit of advice? When you're out on a hunt, I don't care whether it's Bigfoot, uh, some other kind of cryptid, or a ghost. Why are you putting up tents? I mean, the spook factor isn't there because there's too much question as to who's ruffling your tent, who's making no. You're not. It's like sitting in a deer blind that a deer can see very clearly, and so that deer is going to do a little dance for your entertainment. It's And if you're putting up tents, please stop putting them up in buildings. I'm sorry, but this is just, it's the worst thing you can do if you're truly a hunter is lock yourself in a corner or put yourself in a small place, confined, with no escape, right? You would think. Common sense would tell you this would not be a good thing. Maybe it's helping your ratings, but with anybody who's done some camping, if you want to see what's coming up on your camp, you got to be outside the tent. And so you have absolutely no evidence of anything, and it really hurts your credibility. I get the scare factor of all tents. I have been camping, oh my goodness, since, I don't know, but I was a little girl the first time I ever went camping. And I camped out a lot when I was between 14 and 16. You know, I'd run away from home, and I didn't go to the places where people were because it was too dangerous. And when I went camping, I never slept on the ground, not once. And I never built a fire because I wanted to see and have surprise element. I mean, anything that's walking through there is going to smell that I'm there if it's an animal and a non-smoker person. So get some realism into it, because there is a lot of ghostly activity in the world. I mean real, genuine stuff that you can capture and you can share, and your viewers will be ever more grateful because they won't have to question your ethics. Right. Well, when someone is questioning whether you're being honest with them or putting on a show, you know, it's like watching the government do anything. So it's kind of that same concept. So if you're using the tents for the scare factor, for a 6-year-old who is not probably allowed to watch your video, or that might work. But with mom and dad that are sitting there with that 6-year-old, it's not working. They're asking in themselves, you know, maybe even out loud for the child to hear, why in the world are they in a tent in an abandoned house that they're supposed to be trying to capture video evidence and real evidence of ghosts? Why? Makes no sense. Makes no sense. And so, you know, I think that you guys can do better. I watch a lot of haunting stuff. I watch a lot of stuff about afterlife. I watch a lot of stuff about the people who like to go and just explore abandoned places, because that was something I used to do when I was younger. Although I didn't have a camera or a phone, to record everything that I encountered. And most of the time, what I would encounter was another person. It was very rarely ever a ghost, but I say rarely. And that's because I did have experiences that are, make you go, what the hey. I mean, I lived in one house where some really awful things had happened in the house. We found out later. But I hate to say this, my husband, at the time, I think I was 18 or 19 years old. 19. And my husband at the time was only a couple years older, I think maybe 1 or 2 years older than me. But he was into exploring different ideologies, and he was doing some satanic rituals in one of the barns. Now, I didn't know about it. And he told me to stay the hell out of there. It was none of my damn business what he was doing in there. But, when you're dealing with blood for sacrificial animals or anything like that, it leaves a distinctive smell. And one day I just was like, screw this, I'm going in, because we have strange things happening all over inside the house. And we had an attic that went upstairs. Now, the stairs to this attic, you had to go up 3 stairs to a landing and then turn left, and it was a narrow stairway up. 2 people could not walk down it together. It had to be one at a time. And I was always worried about my little baby girl, Jennybug, climbing up those stairs and going upstairs to the attic. There wasn't anything per se dangerous up there, but there was. I mean, you couldn't see what the danger was, but you knew it was there, and it was often threatening. And, you don't want your baby to go climbing up these dangerous stairs. What if the child should fall? Well, we would close the door to the attic, lock it, find it open again within 10 minutes of locking it. It would be wide back open. And one day I had been cooking, and I turned around and that darn door was open again. And Jen was nowhere in sight, so I knew she had gone up those steps. And when I started to follow up the steps to follow her and get her to come back down, I stopped dead in my tracks because there were 2 little kids standing at the top of the steps. And my little Jennybug was about 4 steps away from them. And I saw them as if they were flesh and blood. And they didn't look all bloody. They were just standing there with blank expression. And that scared me probably more than if they had been bloody. So I quickly ran up the stairs, and I looked down just long enough to grab my daughter and pick her up. She was about 1.5 years old. To take her back down the stairs, because I knew there were no other kids in the house, just my Jennybug. And she had stopped. She was on her way up, but I think she saw them too. But when I looked down and I picked her up and I stood up, they were gone. And I looked around in the attic, nowhere, nothing, no sounds. And I grabbed my Jen and I brought her back down the stairs. And I closed the door and I locked it. And I heard that as soon as I started to walk away, I could hear the jiggle of the house was over 100 years old. So it was a small doorknob, not like a normal doorknobs today. And I could see it when I spun around from hearing it, that it was moving. And they unlocked that door. And I watched it swing open. And I, of course, grabbed my baby, and I'm like 7 months pregnant with my son, my second child. And I said, I am out of here. And I grabbed my daughter, and a diaper bag full of stuff and some milk for her, and stuff like that in a diaper bag. And I took off walking down the road, and I walked. It's probably 3/4 of a mile down to my mom and dad's house, and I spent the day there. And I told my mother-in-law what happened, and you know what? She believed me, which was surprising, because she and I had never had any discussions about anything like that, life or death, or it was just normal conversations about what's going on the grocery bill, how much you got to come up with for the propane, and the normal conversations. But when my dad and my husband got home, they came, of course, to Dad's house instead of my dad dropping Dennis off, because we let him know where I was. And we spent the evening there. And we didn't have much furniture in that house. We had a chair that my husband liked to sit in, a couch. We had no TV, we had a radio. And we had a CB radio in case I got in trouble while I was pregnant alone, sitting out there in the middle of the country, not able to really get any help if I needed it. So we couldn't afford a phone, and my dad brought over a CB and hooked us up. And we had a mattress that sat on the floor. Now, Dennis had a pillow that was made out of, I think, 3 coats, and I had a pillow that was made out of a blanket and something else that I tied up in some pillowcases, so we had something to rest our heads on. And I woke up one night laying in bed, and I looked over, and the moonlight's coming in to my daughter's bedroom, and she's sleeping in her crib, just sweet as could be, and I could see her. And I saw the window move in her room, and of course I sat up. Now, I didn't jump up because I didn't know. I mean, her window was easy. It would have been easy for anybody to climb in, because our front porch was almost level with her bedroom window. But I saw the window rising up, like somebody was coming in, and I was watching this just as intently as I could, trying to see, that everything in the house is quiet, except for my husband, his breathing. That was it. And while I was watching, I saw my grandmother. And she was just standing there by the window. She didn't climb in the window. She opened it. And she looked at me and, gave me that grandma look that says, "I love you." And she looked over at my daughter sleeping in the crib and said to me, "Get out of here. Get out of here. Get out of here." And just kept repeating it. Well, I woke up Dennis, hoping he was going to see it. And he did, but not for very long before she faded away, and all you could hear was her voice saying, "Get out of here, get out of here," until it faded away. Now, Dennis was deaf, so he didn't hear her voice, but I heard it clear as a bell. And I got up and I went and closed that window, and I looked over at my daughter, who was sleeping peacefully. And then, Dennis is sitting in the bed thinking I've lost my mind. But then there was something happened that even his deaf ears could hear. There was this huge, thunderous, like somebody stomping right above our heads in the attic. Stomping their feet over and over and over again. And Dennis is like, "What the?" And I'm just terrified. Well, I run closer to Jen's crib, and Dennis gets up, and he goes upstairs. Now, I don't know what he saw. I have no idea. He told me there was a goat man up there, and he had a couple of small people with him. And I was like, what? This sounds crazy, kind of thing. Then my brother came and stayed with us, and his girlfriend. And they were going to fix up the upstairs attic, which was big, and it had plenty of open space. They could put in an entire apartment and just share a kitchen with me, and of course the bathroom. And they were all excited about it. But when Annie got to the house, my brother's girlfriend, she didn't like it at all. She says, there's something wrong with this house. So, she's trying to make herself comfortable there. And I think we cooked up some hot dogs or something to have for dinner. And finished eating, and we were all in the living room just talking, listening to a little music. We had a radio. We didn't have a TV. Wasn't because they didn't have TVs back then, but we couldn't afford one. And this was the Reagan era, where the rich got richer and the poor got poorer. So we sit there. We have a good time laughing and talking, and drank a lot of lemonade because I had to use bottled water that I got from my dad's well. Our well didn't work. And when it did work, oh my God, the smell came out of the water was awful. You knew not to drink it. It smelled like something like from an oil field. So you didn't bother with the water unless you had to flush the toilet. And so that night they go upstairs. They've got some pads to lay down on the floor and some blankets and stuff to sleep under. They're setting themselves up. Dennis and I go to bed. My Jennybug's sound asleep. And all's quiet. Then I hear this blood-curdling scream come from upstairs. And all of a sudden, I hear my brother and my sister-in-law coming down those narrow steps as fast as I could. I think my brother slid down half of them. And I think Annie I'm not sure if she touched a step on her way down. They were just moving, and it was like boom, 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 boom through the whole house while they were scampering to get down, desperate to get away from what was up there. And Annie woke up. She told us she got woke up by a little child pulling on her foot. And the little kid was telling her, bad man, bad man, bad man, bad man. And just kept saying it over and over again. Scared the hell out of her. And she said she didn't see any other man. She didn't see anything like that. But there was the distinct smell of blood. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. And we went up there, and it looked like somebody had torn an animal apart up there. It had to be like an owl or something, because there were body parts and blood and feathers all over the place up there. And there was no way to explain it. I don't know how the owl could have got it in the house, much less up there. And Annie was terrified. She said she'd sleep down there in the living room for the rest of the night, and then they did not stay with us anymore. Well, with all that stuff happening and the smell that was coming out of the barn, I really questioned what my husband was up to. And, I could follow orders for a while, I guess, because he made it clear he did not want me going in there. And when I went in there, what I saw was a pentagram and some dead owls and other birds and some rabbits, and it was not a pretty sight, and it was stinky. He'd been burning candles in there and all kinds of things. Well, I told him it had to stop. I said, no, we're not doing this. Now, Y'all know my take on religion. Well, my dad says we're going to take him to church. We've got to expose him to God because he's going the other way. I agreed. And we started going to church. He cleaned all that mess up out of the barn, got it all taken down, all the animals properly buried, and the stuff kept getting worse in the house. Well, one day, I'm sitting in the living room with my daughter. I get up to go to the bathroom. There is no way in the time that she had that she could get from the living room at 1.5 years old, through the kitchen, up those stairs, unlock the door, open it, and go up those stairs, and go to the far side of the attic, and sit right in front of a window. There's no way she could have done that by herself. I came out of the bathroom, my daughter was gone, not a sound. I did not hear her moving into the kitchen or moving around. I didn't hear anything. But when I walked in the kitchen and I saw that door open, I knew where she was. And I did not take a slow pace, scared, hide, oh my God, what am I going to see? No, I sprinted up those steps 3 at a time. And I mean big old bell, bigger than I got now, because I was close to term. And I saw her. That was, and she was so close to that window, one shove would have put her through the glass, which was thin, old-fashioned glass. I don't think they'd ever replaced a window in that house. And down she would have went 2 stories. So I was terrified. And Dennis got home from work that day, and my brother was with him, and his wife, Annie. And I told everybody what happened, and I told Dennis, I said, listen, that door's going to keep opening. We have to make sure Jen can't get up there. Now, we had no way to move. My dad's house was full. But in the end, it didn't make a difference. We were there because we had to get out of that house. So yes, I do believe that ghosts are real. And what we learned about the history of that house was just terrifying. It was a horror movie that somebody lived through during my lifetime, because we ended up encountering the man who did the murders that happened in that house, up in the attic and down in our bedroom. In the attic, he had killed his 2 children. It was a twin boy and girl, and he killed them both, and then he went downstairs, and he had already tied up his wife, and incapacitated her before he went and killed the children. But he left her alive to hear them children die. Think about that. Think about what I just said. He left her alive so she could hear her children die. And I know that he did this because he told me, my husband, 3 police officers, and my father. This guy suddenly started showing up at the house. Now, actually, let me backtrack a little bit. The stairs. Now, my husband and my brother pulled those stairs apart and took them out so nobody could go up there. And he locked the door and then took a piece of wood and nailed it, holding the door shut so it would not open again. Well, we go to church. Come home from church, and there's a strange man parked in our driveway. Now, these steps are not there, and the door is boarded up when we left. We get there, there's a stranger at our house. go inside. Well, I did, and my husband and my brother went to go talk to this guy. And my brother decided he's going to go down to Dad, so he just started walking. Didn't think nothing serious about the guy. Guy seemed to be of no threat. But the guy said he used to live in the house. And that there was some pretty bad things that happened there. He sat with my husband, Dennis, drinking beer and talking about the old days. And he would stare at me, and it was just an awful feeling when he would stare at me. He would stare at my belly. And he even said, you got two there. How he knew that, I don't know, because I didn't know it until like a week or two later. But he told me, he said, yeah, your husband is going to do just what I did. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he said, let me show you my photo album from when I lived here. And he pulls out of his trunk this old photo album. And he starts showing us this house is beautiful. Big yard, trees, just a beautiful house out in the middle of nowhere, out in the farm land. And it's just beautiful area. And the house looked so grand. And it was a farmhouse. It was not a mansion. It was a farmhouse. And it just was so different from what I was living in, which was pretty broke down, and paint peeling everywhere, just very worn and old looking. And seeing it so vibrant was it was really a nice experience. But it kept going through this photo album. And then he said, here, let me show you these. And he went to the back of the photo album, flipped it over, opened it from the back, and then said, this is my wife. And she was in a coffin. And I don't know why people think that an open casket is okay when there has been a lot of physical damage to a human body. But he had pictures that were just, I wanted to throw up. And it was just where the mortician had sewn her face back together. It just was kind of gruesome. And then he went and flipped the next page. And there were his children, also in coffin. But their coffins, such tiny little things, but they had these glass window kind of things on them, so the lid could be closed. And all you could see were these little faces, sweet little faces, and their eyes were closed. They looked like sleeping little angels. You couldn't see. And he said, yeah, they all died together. And I started thinking about everything that had been happening in this house, and that this guy is now saying he used to live here, that he lost his wife and 2 children here. He's not saying he killed them yet. It wasn't until a couple days later, he sat there, he drank with my husband, and then left after showing us his photo album. And he just left. And he showed up a couple days later. And I told Dennis, I really don't feel comfortable. This man makes me uncomfortable. And it was Wednesday, so we had to go to church. And Dennis, tells him, hey, we gotta go. It was nice sitting and hanging with you, but we gotta go to Wednesday Mass. And he said, okay, and told us to have a nice evening, and he left. Well, we go to church, and we come home with my dad right behind us when we pulled in the driveway. And, well, my family right behind us. And we get pulled all the way in, and the house does not seem right. First of all, there's a light on, and we didn't turn our lights on before we left. Even though we knew it'd be dark when we got home, we usually didn't. Because, I mean, my husband and I had walked up and down that road I don't know how many times at night. Coming home from my dad's playing penny ante poker, or just watching wrestling, or some, just some family time. And so when we got there and there was a light on, that, hey, whoa. And our dad pulled in behind us because he noticed the difference too. And he's like, Dennis, let's check the house. Dennis and my brother and my dad go to check the house. And the guy's in the house. The house is trashed. What little we did have is either busted up, cut up with knives, or just really bad, tore up. The CB was busted up and wires pulled out. It was, we had so little. To have somebody do this to what little we did have was kind of brutal. Well, we never saw his car near the house, so we didn't think he was there when they went in. But he was nearby. We didn't know that. But of course my dad called cops to report a break-in. And so the police showed up, and we told them about the guy. We thought homeless guy living out of his car. And they asked us for a description. I said, well, he's probably mid-50s, he's an older man, skinny, maybe 6 foot tall, just general. He looked like, sorry, no offense, but he looked and smelled homeless. And one of the officers said, we're looking for somebody that fits the person you described. And sure enough, right after he said that, here comes this guy in his car, right up the driveway, with the cops there and everything, like it was no big deal. And everything okay? Everything okay? Yeah, everything's okay. Our house just got broke into, and he started laughing. He said it wasn't broke into. And the one cop looked at him, he said, that's my house, that's where I live. And they're going to move out, or I'm going to kill them. And I mean, we're all standing there, just jaws dropped. And me, I'm standing there, oh my God. Oh my God. And I started to put things together and the police arrested him. And they told us we wouldn't have to worry about him anymore. And I said, you're going to give me who is this guy? What did he do? And they said, well, he's escaped from prison, actually. And he murdered his children and his wife in this house. And his wife was about 8 months pregnant with twins. And I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. I can't believe that we pulled into a place like this, that we thought this was going to be a safe, good home. Maybe we could actually settle for once and build us a nice little family life. And they put him in the police car, and they get ready to take him away. And Dennis tells him, my husband tells him, he's got something in that trunk you gotta see. And they make the guy open the trunk. The guy gets it unlocked and opens the trunk, and there's a photo album. There's a hatchet, an axe, and a long, like a machete knife, and some rope. And after they left, of course, we couldn't sleep there. So we all went to my dad's house, and we went to sleep. And the next day, I got up and went to the house. And I'm just standing there in this house, and I'm totally, my brain is almost so open and empty that it can't process a thought. Because I'm trying to put this together in my head that I encountered this person who did this thing, and he was planning on doing it to me and my family. And he thought it was okay. He really thought it was okay. But I understood the children. Now the mother, I gotta tell you, I only saw her one time. One time. And it was the last time I was in that house. And she was standing, there's a hallway that comes like in from the outside door. And you can either go straight into the bathroom or you could turn left and go into the living room. And she was standing right in the center of that hallway. And she was smiling, looking at me, and then looking at that bathroom. And that was really weird. Okay. Well, we never had hot water in the house or anything like that because it didn't have a water heater. We had no money to go buy one, and oh God, the repairs that house needed was 100 years worth. But she was smiling, and then she was gone. And I didn't see her all bloody, gory, or anything like that. And I mean, we did have cabinet doors open, but never thought much of it. My daughter would go open cabinet doors or refrigerator door or whatever, just because she could. So we just go by closing them. And so some of that may have been them, but I don't think it was. And gathered up the rest of our belongings because we didn't have much left. Our mattress had been shredded with a knife. Our couch had been decouched. My husband's chair was broke into 3 sections. Yeah. Listen, guys, if you're going to search for the paranormal, do so with some credibility. I know that Zach Baggins has made himself a name, but I always thought of him as kind of a fraud. And although he could be entertaining, I never believed anything that he put out there. Not the Sally House, not any of it. Even though they have histories of their own, well beyond Zach Baggins. But I always thought he was just not real. You know, he found a gimmick and it worked, and so good for him on that one. But I never gave him any credibility. I would just love to find one of these ghost hunter or paranormal hunting people that actually captures something worthwhile. You know, I watch a lot of videos, as you know. And when I watch the ones on cryptids or paranormal, it's always so dark you can't see anything. If they don't put a little circle or an arrow pointing to something, you don't see it. And that's semi-credible. Okay, some of it. Some of it is just hogwash. But I'd like to see a real one. Because I have lived in more than one haunted place. And after I saw that lady that her husband had killed her. You know, I saw her ghost. I gathered up our stuff and I left. That house burned down that afternoon. And there had no explanation for how it burned down, because like I said, there was no water heater in the house. Yet the old lines for the water heater is where they said the fire started. But we had no propane, so there was no fuel to ignite anything. But the house burned down after that. And of course, we were homeless again, but I think she was just making sure nobody else could go through that. I think that his wife was going to make sure nobody else got hurt by him. And that if he ever came back to that house, there would never be anything left for him to relish in the memories of his murderous days. And this is real. This did happen. You know, we took those stairs out and boarded up that attic, like I told you. When I went that day to pick up the stuff to get the rest of our stuff out of that house, those stairs were back in place. And that attic door was wide open. And I didn't put them back. I know nobody in my family put them back. So that's just some of the things I can't explain about the house. And I still pray for that woman and her 2 children. I still pray for them because they need to move on. Let him pay his penance. What happened to them was horrible and tragic, but they needed to move on to a better place. And there is one. And that light is right there waiting for them to come through. I don't know what reasons they don't. They don't have to stay there. But maybe they think they're protecting others. Maybe that's why they stay. I don't know. But do yourselves a favor and build some credibility. I've seen a couple of good shows. I've seen a couple of them get very lucky and catch some really good stuff. So don't go by the success of a falling star. Follow your own path and show us what's really on the other side. Do I believe in EVP? Yes, I do. Do I think your word boxes work? Maybe. I don't know. I can't tell you honestly. But sometimes it seems pre-programmed to come up with the words you want at the right time. And so, I mean, but please, I'm not being a skeptic. I'd like to see the paranormal be taken out of the realm of sketchiness and put into the realm of here's what we've got, and this is how we track it, and this is what we find. Now, people talk about Bigfoot all the time. Oh, I saw him, and you may have. But, you know, we have so many hunters out there that have good tracking skills, but I don't ever see them trying to go and hunt down a Bigfoot. At least they don't do it and then put it on YouTube if they do. So I hope they're not. But do I believe in Bigfoot? I believe there's a lot of species on and inside this planet that we have no ideas about because we live in our little world, our little bubble of society. So, you know, they say everything is down to legends and just ghost stories when it's not. There's so much genuine exploring to be done. I watched a show about the Bigfoot hunters. And though the woman's got all these credentials, saying she's a biologist, she's studying these kind of animals and learning these, all they ever come up with is some sounds and some stuff that I can go put up in my own forest right now and tell you, look, Bigfoot made a house. No, you're going to have to come up with something more. Sounds do not equate to the paranormal at all. I sit out on my porch at night, and of course I know all the animal sounds. But I also know the sounds of branches breaking because they're up high and rotted out and fall. I know what it sounds like when trees fall. I know what it sounds like when my dog walks out in the forest. I know those sounds. The most quiet creature I have experienced out here has been a bear. A little brown bear. And it come walking up, I think was female. And we never heard her coming through the forest at all. She was so silent. Never broke a branch, never cracked a twig, no leaf rustling or anything like that. And she just came right up out of the woods. There she was. So I think she's alone. That may be why she's so skittish. I love her light stripe down her back. She looks like a skunk. Oh, eat and enjoy. If you're a scientist going out for ratings and you're doing like this Bigfoot people, I can't watch it anymore. I mean, I try to see if you guys have come up with some real stuff, but it's always the same. So, and with the paranormal, I know you guys are trying new things, but the tent is not working. In fact, it's kind of hurting your credibility. Because I know if I'm hunting something, I'm not going to go put myself in a confined space that I can't see outside all the way around me. There's no way in hell I'm going to do that. Whether I'm hunting a cryptid, a ghost, or anything else, I have to see what's around me so that I can catch the activity I'm hoping to catch. If I'm blinded and stuck in a small confined space where humans can mess with me, co-workers can mess with me, you know, I mean, really from what I watch on these camping shows, the biggest fear that campers have to worry about these days are not the wildlife, it's humans. So go find us some real proof. Give me something good, entertaining to watch. I know you can do it. I know you can do it. And you can put Zach Baggins to shame, because I'm certain you guys can come up with some real stuff. And, well, that's all I wanted to say. Paranormal. Cryptids. Are they real or not? I think many are. I think many aren't. And do I think there are a lot of species we don't know about? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because we walk around with blinders on most of the time. It's when we take the blinders off that we can see what's around us. Yeah. Anyway, I have made this almost an hour long. I love you guys. It's going to be another angry upload by YouTube. But it will forgive me, I hope. Alrighty, guys. American Granny loves you, and keep an eye out for those cryptids. and keep an eye out for them ghosts. And don't give up believing that there's more to this world than we can imagine. Mwah. American Granny out. Well, viewers, I really hope you enjoyed my thoughts on the paranormal and paranormal programming, and even my one true story. There was a lot of details I left out so I could make this not an hour and a half, 2-hour video. So a lot of work goes into this, and I hope you really enjoyed it. And the video of the bear, that was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, maybe. Even, no, be 2 years ago. And so I love y'all. Keep up the efforts to find the proof. If you're a good tracker, and I think that there are a lot of them out there, and they're bored, and they're hiking in the middle of nowhere and exploring abandoned buildings. But not everything is got to be, I mean, it's spooky and creepy if it's dark, of course. And I mean, almost all that stuff that I talked about in my story, almost half at least, happened during the daytime. They were not all done in the dark. So when it's revealing itself to you, and you better respect it, do not do like Zach Baggins. You know, his thing is, I've got to incite them to anger. And I've seen other Ghostbusters do that. Or not ghost investigators, paranormal investigators, whatever they're identifying as. But the ones that are, every little sound freaks them out. I'm sorry, by the second or third sound, I'm questioning whether you're setting things up. And just like on a movie set, when everything is dark or the light is limited, you can't see what's happening in the background, and it's easy to make a good horror movie. If you're that kind of producer, take it that way. Take it that way. Make some good money. But if you're a serious investigator, I would start going back to some of the old methods that are a little more credible. One lady I watched on a show that was her person was being haunted, not just the house she was living in. She could move, but it would move with her. It went everywhere she went. But she could communicate. She worked a way to communicate with this thing. And she used a simple recorder, and she started out respectfully. She recorded what she was saying, and then stopped speaking. And she watched her watch it and count. She sat silently listening, knowing she's probably not going to hear anything. But when she replays it, she might. Now those are harder to dispute than digital technology. That is so easy to manipulate. This technology is great because it has not had all the bugs worked out of it. And all of our technicians, our intelligent kids that are creating this, our wonderful youth, the greatest minds that are creating all this for us, they're a little sidetracked with some politics, just like adults. So they're going to try to just get some stuff out there and make some money, and I get that. But please, please, stop with the tents. You're a hunter. You are not playing like you're the prey, to be preyed on. You're not the bait. You're wanting to communicate with something that you think once was human. You want to communicate with something that you think at one time communicated with us, humans. So whatever the being is. I don't close my mind that much. But you do have to understand that if you bring them in this dimension to communicate with them, it could be harmful to them. Maybe that's why you don't ever talk to, so-and-so's granny who just wanted to say that the great-great-grandbaby is a beautiful baby. You don't ever talk to those kind. I know it's not spooky enough. But if they're in the dark because they have trapped themselves there, which I believe they can, those are the people you're reaching out to. And they're being tortured by their own conceptions. They're testing the boundaries of their resilience to hold on to it. And they don't know how to let go. And it's quite simple, but their minds will not, because they're still hanging on to that. The mind goes with the spirit, the thought, that your entire being, once you're out of the flesh, goes with you. Every memory, every thought, and all of that will be experienced in different ways. Not like it did exactly when it happened. "3 weeks in a coma. It took me a very, very long time to reconcile from what I recalled from my coma. They told me, you can't recall anything. It's, even my mother said, isn't it like being in a void? I said, well, kinda. You're in a void. You can hear everything around you. You can't move. You can't respond in any way. And in some cases, you can see who's around you. But the experiences I had during my coma was me I was dealing with. That's why there was nothing else around. I wasn't dying yet. I wasn't that far. I was in a coma. So I wasn't ready to go up there or into the light, where we go to begin. Maybe it's high school, college. I honestly don't know what awaits that far. I've never been quite that far. But I know it's like best way I can explain it is like going to a family reunion, maybe a reunion with friends, and then, that's your time to adjust to not being in your flesh anymore. And now you've got all this data, information that you absorbed during this life. I'll tell you what, I'm being very, very careful. I'm trying to be, anyway, about what I take into my afterlife. And I'm not so much a hater as I'm a rager. And it took a long time for me to recognize the difference between the two. I would almost say that it is like your brain is a computer. It is almost like life here is almost like virtual. reality, when you leave this life, it becomes like virtual reality. While you're in it, it is not. If this is all some kind of simulation, you are the one creating it. You. Not some alien species, not some intelligence beyond. It's you. It's you. In your natural being, natural. I think that's why Buddhists believe in reincarnation. Only reason I don't believe in Buddhism is because they believe that harming the body by starving it till death is forced to take you is ascending. No, that's desperation to get the hell out of this life that you're in. That's how I see it. The only times I ever felt like I wish I could die, get out of here, are those times. So I don't understand it all, and I don't pretend to. But what all I have learned, with all the new technology I've seen come alive and be brought out to the masses for the first time, because I promise you, the extremely wealthy had this technology that we're playing with right now at least 30 years ago. Okay? It's not new. It's new to us. And I think it can be used to investigate the paranormal. I think it can be used to track and what would you call it? When the scientist writes down the data and they actually give the cryptid a name of its species, create a name for its species. And it'll be a documented one, and then that can move on. Because you know what? People think there's not hardly any left. And I'm wrong. I'm telling you, you're wrong. Earth has been creating creatures for billions of years. Why would it stop with just what's measly here on the surface of its skin? This is a much bigger planet than we see from our little zone. And, you know, if it is Armageddon, the only thing they say you can do to help survive it is, you know, prep up and stock up on food and then live in the war zone that comes after. And I don't want to do that. I don't know about you, but there's still a lot about this world that I want to explore that goes beyond war. I don't want to explore war. War has gotten boring to me. Not in the sense that I am not compassionate for the people suffering, the governments, and their chess games because they're bored of, well, you know what, I gotta shake up my country, I gotta do this, all right. That's what I'm tired of with the wars. I'm tired of people fighting people over resources. I'm not gonna say over nothing, because you will starve without it, it's resources. But we need to be better about it. And the socialism our governments want to put in is total hypocrisy, and I cannot support the communists. No. I was raised by parents who knew many of them, and I have talked to people who have come from other countries, and they would tell me, yeah, socialism is, yeah, not good. And I look at it this way with the presidency. One way or another, I'm going to end up with a dictator. It's either going to be Kamala or it's going to be Trump. Which one do I want? I want Trump. He's not out to erase me because I'm a citizen in America. And I hope immigrants, because you are here legally, and there's going to be a lot of people who do recognize this, but it's going to take a little bit of time. And it'll get better. It'll get better, and they'll, get tired of deporting everybody. I've seen it happen several times in my lifetime. So hold on to just stop hurting each other. We have to find a way to make it work. And a socialist government never works. Never works. Never. You will never own anything. And you will always be indebted to your master. Slavery has no color. I hope all this argument over the last year about it kind of proves that. Slavery has no color. Slavery comes from tyranny. And it comes from oppressive rulers. Just like the pharaohs before them, or the kings and queens before them. We keep hoping they'll just take each other out. That's the normal people I know anyway. But the only problem is when they take each other out, they take everybody else with them. And that means that they've left their humanity behind to become something else. And they're going to call it a better species of human. I'm going to disagree. I think it's a worse species of human. So we may be among the last of the intelligent species. The last of the species with a spirit. Because your spirit is what gives you compassion. Not just empathy, but compassion. Empathy comes from standing in someone else's shoes. Not from compassion. They are two different things. I know, they don't want you to know. It's now the unknown knowledge, the forbidden knowledge. Maybe that's what I should be calling my channel, the forbidden knowledge. Yeah, right. But I don't know everything about everybody or everything on this. No, I don't. My brain probably stored somewhere has it all. But I don't have access to it because it's too much for the parts to not overheat. And smoke coming out my ears. Yeah. So there are some things that we just remember from inside us. I mean, when you are thinking and you answer a question, now the one answering is you, not your brain that asks the question. It's you answering. And you never hear that voice, but you hear it. Not in your head, like your thinking voice. This voice comes from somewhere else, deep inside you. All forms of life that we take, no matter what it is, human or not, maybe even another planet, all life forms face survival. It's just a way of creation. And no, I don't think we're in a interdimensional. I think we're on a certain level. And if I'm in a 3 world, I'm going to say I'm a 3rd grader and hoping to graduate to 4. Because that is what I believe life is about. So, alright guys, I gotta shut down. I went way too long. Boy, I'm just everywhere tonight. Well, all day. Okay, so, like, share, comment, and please subscribe. Please, pretty please. And if you would like to help support my channel so I can keep working through all this brain here and sharing it with you, and maybe we're both getting something good out of it. So please subscribe and please like. If I want people to actually see my videos, I need likes. And I am trying to reach out to a lot of people. Tried to do this before, and of course I did it wrong way. And I'm still dealing with the repercussions of doing it the wrong way. So I do not do all the communication. That's the word I was trying to, it was there somewhere, but that a lot of them do, because I'm not comfortable with chats at all. I've had to, out of 4,000 friends, I had to delete 2,700 of them. So, please forgive me. I know I will, if I've got something to say about what your comments are, I will, and I'll communicate that way. Because it keeps it where it's more communication and nothing else. Okay, American Granny out. Again. Mwah.